in their profession. And you know very well that this is going to be a presentation of the lecture by the Honorable Honorable former Judge of the Supreme Court on particularly the subject, you know very well, environmental rights and duties under the Constitution. And I'm just addressing the students over here and the lawyers over here. Be prepared with your questions. There is going to be an interactive session which is always been expected from the students and the lawyers over here. And come out with questions. Come out your whatever comes to your mind. I will not give you any clue on that because I don't want to open the question book now. I don't want to give you any clue, but be prepared. I'll be expecting, or I'll be pointing out some of the students over here. How many of the law college students have come VIT? How many other colleges? Be prepared with your questions. I know that what are the articles which speaks about environment in our Constitution of India, and we have be prepared your questions, and they will be answering. And bear with me for some more time, that because the chief guest has come. இன்னும் கொஞ்ச நேரத்தில் நம்ம ஆரம்பிச்சிருவோம். ஆரம்பித்த பிறகு நம்ம எல்லாம் இது பண்ணிடலாம். முன்னாடி இருக்கிறவங்களாம் அப்படி இருக்கிற சீட்ஸ் எல்லாம் கொஞ்சம் இது பண்ணிக்கோங்க. வெளியில் இருக்கிறவங்களாம் கொஞ்சம் ஏமா அருணா பாருமா அங்கே யாராக இருந்தாங்கன்னாக்கா வெளியில் இருக்கிறவங்க அனுப்ப சொல்லிடு. தம்பி ஹேண்ட் பேங்க்லாம் இருக்கு இல்லையா, அங்கே கொண்டு போகிறதுக்கு யாராவது நிற்கணும். ஹேண்ட் பேங்க் இப்போ இல்லை, நான் சொல்லும்போது இன்ட்ராக்டிவ் செஷன் வரும்போது கொடுத்துருங்க.
ஏன் போங்க லைவ் ஓடினு இருக்கு, நான் கூட போகும்போது தெரியல. அவர் போட்டிருக்காரு இல்லை சார் அவர் போட்டிருக்காரு
Meet them with a big clap. Corporation School. Chennai. The fifth edition of annual Rakesh Endowment Lecture Series for Justice and Equity, organized by Rakesh Law Foundation and Roja Muttaya Research Library, is to be commenced. And first of all, I request the Chennai school, Subrahman school, the students of the Chennai school, Subrahman school, to come up to the dais and say Tamil Thai Valtu. The students. Ready? I request all of you to rise for the Tamil Thai Valtu. Start. Neerad kadaludutha nilamadandai kelilolugum சீராரும் வதனமென திகழ் பரத கண்டமிதில் கணமும் அதில் சீரந்த திராவிடனல் திருநாடும் தக்க சிறு பிறை நுதலும் தனித்தனரும் திலகமுமே அத்திலக வாசனை போல் அனைத்துலகும் இன்பமுற எத்திசையும் புகழ் மணக்க இருந்த பெரும் தமிழனங்கே தமிழனங்கே உன் சீரிழமை தீரம் வியந்து செயல் மறந்து வாழ்த்துதுமே வாழ்த்துதுமே வாழ்த்துதுமே. Thank you, children. Thank you for your recital. Before I call Mr. Sundar for the welcome address, we have a tribute to make about Rakesh. எங்கள் அன்பு ராகேஷ், எனது தங்கை அருணா அருளிய இளவலே, தம்பி இளவங்கோவின் இதய முறுவலே, எங்கள் பிள்ளை ராகவியின் தழுவலே, துலங்கும் விளக்கின் தூவலாய் நீ, இளங்கும் இம்மன்றத்தில் நாங்கள், விதைகள் வீழ்ந்துதான் எழும், விருட்சமாகி பழங்களை தரும், விருந்துண்டு சுவைப்பவர் நாங்கள், விதைக்கின்றோம் உன் கனவை, விழிக்க வைப்போன் இந்த உலகை. ராகேஷ், உன் வழியில் உதயங்கள் 100 உதிக்கும் உலகில், உனது உணர்வுகள் உறங்காது என்னாலும், உயிர் வழக்கும் தப்பாது, பயிராகி பலனாகும் எப்போதும், உறக்கச் சொல்லி உன் புகழை உலகமாற வாழ்த்துகின்றோம். அருணாமடியின் உதயமே, இளங்கோ இதய சூரியனே, தொடங்கியது நீ, தொடர்கிறோம் நாங்கள், இது முடிவல்ல மற்றொரு ஆரம்பம், ஆரம்பிக்கட்டும் அறிவுத்தன்றல். Now I request Mr. Sundar, Director Roja Muttaya Research Library, to welcome the gathering, please.
A very good evening to all of you. I warmly welcome all of you for this August event. We are gathered here to celebrate the 25th birth anniversary of Rakesh Ranganathan, son of Tirumati Aruna Ilango and Thiru N.R. Ilango. Rakesh was a cheerful and spirited young man, and we deeply miss him on this occasion. The Rakesh Endowment Lecture Series for Justice and Equality was constituted in memory of him in 2022 by the Rakesh Law Foundation at the Roja Muttaya Research Library. A few words about the library. RMRL has been in existence since 1994, and we have been specializing in the area of archiving, documentation, and dissemination with the help of modern technology. There are not many legal repositories in this country apart from the state archives and the court archives. The RMRL has been providing its expertise in documenting this important aspect of our history to several institutions. To name one, we have worked with the High Court in Odisha when Justice Muralidhar was the Chief Justice there. The RMRL is now creating the Tamil Knowledge Campus with the support of philanthropists, corporates, and the government of Tamil Nadu. This campus is envisioned to serve as a center for knowledge acquisition and sharing, and to provide an immersive learning experience to bring social transformation. We are particularly very happy to associate with Rakesh Law Foundation as we share common ideas. Dr. Raghavi will elaborate about the Rakesh Law Foundation. Today's lecture will be the fifth in this series. It is a great privilege and honor to have with us Honorable Mr. Justice Abhay Shreeniwas Oka, former judge of the Supreme Court of India, who will be delivering a talk on environment, rights of duties under the Constitution of India. I extend a warm welcome to him and thank him sincerely for accepting our invitation. Mr. A.K. Sachinder will formally introduce him shortly. I also take pleasure in welcoming through N. Ram, Director of Hindu Publishing Private Limited and one of the long-time friends of the Roja Muthiah Research Library, who will be moderating today's session. I also welcome Honorable Mr. Justice G.M. Akbar Ali, former judge, Madras High Court, who will be hosting an interactive session after the lecture. I welcome Dr. Raghavi, daughter of N.R. Ilango, a medical doctor by training and vice chairman of Rakesh Law Foundation. She will elaborate on the vision and mission of the foundation. I also welcome Mr. A.K. Sachinder and Dr. M. Ranjit. Dr. Ranjit will deliver the vote of thanks. On behalf of the Rakesh Law Foundation and the Roja Muthiah Research Library, I welcome all the judges, advocates, bureaucrats, politicians, and members from media present here today. A special welcome to all the students who have joined us on this Saturday evening with great enthusiasm. Once again, a very warm welcome to each and every one of you.
Thank you, Mr. Sundar. Before we go into the program, a tribute to our Rakesh. Oh, our beloved Rakesh, you touched our lives with your laughter and love. In our memories, your laughter echoes still. Your dreams unfold every year this day. We cherish your memories. Turning into memorable moment, a lecture series of justice and equity is going to start. Before that, may I request the Honorable Judge of the former Supreme Court of India and the dignitaries on the dais to give a floral tribute to our beloved Rakesh, please. May I request His Lordship to flower the plants because it is your Lordship's suggestion. You know that usually that we light the kuttu lighting of the lamp, but it's your Lordship's suggestion to grow trees because the topic of the today series is also the environment. I request all others to join. I know that it's going to be there and growing and add value to the environment. It's a good suggestion, Lordship. Give a big hand for His Lordship to give such a suggestion for planting the trees. Thank you, Lordship. Thank you very much. Now I request Dr. Abhay, the Vice Chairman of the Rakesh Law Foundation, to state the mission and vision of the Rakesh Law Foundation and talk about our beloved Rakesh.
Thank you, sir. Good evening to the distinguished guests who are gathered here. I am privileged to stand before you all on the 5th edition of the Rakesh Endowment Lecture Series for Justice and Equity to share the mission and vision of the foundation. But before that, I just want to reflect a little about what is a mission and vision as an individual and as an institution. So mission is a compass which will guide us on for what we have begun and what we should not compromise. And also it differentiates between doing the work and what is to do a meaningful work. Mission is also gathers all our efforts and it transforms us to do a purpose instead of just doing unmeaningful work. Lastly, I see mission is when we don't know what is going to happen ahead. It is a steadfast which gives us the answer. On the other hand, vision. It is the horizon that we travel towards and it's a future direction. So vision is something which answers us, what will we be after 10 years? And because we have existed this long. So together, the vision and mission makes our institution a legacy. For RLF, our mission and vision is not just documents that we want to revisit every year. The lecture series, the school initiatives, and the collaborations that we do puts us a precision and gives us a clarity for what we should do further. So, the mission of RLF, I want to put it into 3 folds. The first fold being supporting to education for who needs it. We have, as a foundation, we have provided fundamental needs to government schools such as the blackboards, drinking water, benches, and study material. And also, we've made students reach competitive examinations like NEET and JEE, which is defining the arc of young's life in today. The second fold being a bridge between law and the public. So, why do we have to do this? The law in its own essential form belongs to everybody. But do you think that is the situation right now? I feel it remains inaccessible for many. So the lecture series that has happened because of the foundation previously and which will happen to ahead, we seek as a foundation and constant supports from the RMRL. We want the constitutional thought to become a public conversation like today. The third fold of our mission is to acknowledge talents and knowledge. So we honor the students who academically achieve and who achieve in Tamil language in the Chennai Corporation Subrayan Avenue School, Aminjikare. And also we have a long-term collaboration with EduRight Foundation because we want to recognize potential which is resided everywhere. As a foundation, we envision a society which is providing opportunity for every individual, not just by what they are and what the circumstances. It should provide them everything. And we also envision and seek that our lecture series, our initiatives and the collaboration will help support all the missions that I've enlisted earlier. And inspiring from today's lecture, we want, as a foundation, to support the environment which has nurtured us throughout. So, as it marks the fifth edition of the lecture series, I'm deeply honored to welcome Honorable Justice Mr. Abhay Shreeniwas Oka coming down today and giving us the lecture. And I'm very, very grateful to people like Mr. N. Ram of the Hindu groups for mentoring us throughout and moderating the series today. I'm deeply grateful to Mr. Sundar of RMRL for traveling with us from the beginning and giving us the welcome speech and supporting us throughout. And I also want to thank Honorable Justice Akbar Ali J for traveling us throughout and giving us support. Thank you so much, sir. And I also want to thank Dr. Ranjit and A.K. Sachinder for giving us the speech today and being a support. I also want to thank everyone who are with us in this continuing journey. I thank you all.
That is Raghavi. We only asked her to give the vision and mission, and she has already thanked every one of us. Thank you, Raghavi, for that. Now, we'll go to the next item that I will request Mr. Ilango to present the books in memory of today's function to the Honorable former Judge of the Supreme Court and others and the dignitaries on the dais. Raghavi, I will send ADR content. Here is. Come here. Before we go into the next item, I think the Raghavi has an audio visual, which will go for a few minutes. Lordship will let us see the audio visual of this one. Our beloved Rakesh.
Not to weep his departure, but to celebrate his life. We still feel he's arrived with us. What I am today is because of the society. What I am today is because of my seniors, my teachers, my friends, my relatives, and the party which I belong to.
Every voice needs to be heard. Every cry of pain needs to be recognized. And every achievement needs to be applauded. That's what true democracy means.
As a lawyer, you must be able to read, comprehend, write down what you've read, then speak.
காணலின் நீரோ என்றால் காணலின் நீருமல்ல, தோற்றப்பிழையோ என்றால் தோற்றப்பிழையும் அல்ல, தோற்ற மயக்கமும் அல்ல, அற்ப மாயம் அல்ல, சொற்பனம் அல்ல, நீ விடிவெள்ளி தோன்றிக்கொண்டே இருப்பாய் எங்கள் நெஞ்சங்களில் நிரந்தரமாய். Thank you, Raghavi, for such a short and sweet and memories of Rakesh. Now I request Sachin, the Advocate Madras, to introduce the speaker.
Honorable judges, respected advocates, dear students, and everyone present here, good evening. It is my privilege and honor to introduce the distinguished speaker for today's lecture, a jurist whose life and work stands as a motivation for young advocates and students in their ever-learning career, Honorable Justice Mr. Abhay Shreeniwas Oka. Justice Oka hails from a family with a proud legal heritage. His father, Shreeniwas Oka, was a renowned lawyer. In an interesting biographical footnote, I came to know that Honorable Justice Oka had initially set out to become an engineer, but gave up that path midway and chose to join the legal fraternity instead, a decision that the Indian judiciary has benefited from immensely. He holds a BSc and LLM from the University of Bombay and enrolled as an advocate in 1983, commencing his career at Thane District Court in his father's chambers. He went on to practice for 19 years at the Bombay High Court and was appointed as an additional judge of the Bombay High Court in the year 2003 and subsequently became Chief Justice of Karnataka High Court in the year 2009. Honorable Justice Oka was elevated as Judge of Supreme Court on 31st August 2021 and has authored 383 judgments and was part of 1,000 decisions, a body of work remarkable for both its breadth and depth. On his last working day, which is 2 days after the demise of his mother, Lordship had delivered approximately 11 judgments, which shows his unwavering dedication to the cause of justice. Throughout his distinguished career, Justice Oka emerged as one of the most steadfast judicial voice on environmental protection. During his tenure as a High Court judge, he passed orders on environmental protection and for better living conditions in Bengaluru and Mumbai. At the Supreme Court, his legacy with respect to decisions in environmental issues are both broad and bold. A bench led by Justice Oka closely monitored the dangerous spike in Delhi's air quality index, directing the school closure during the most severe pollution stages, and pushing the authorities on solid waste management. He was known for his directness with errant authorities, declaring that if the authorities are not going to perform their statutory and constitutional duties, the court has to give a clear and loud signal to all the authorities that the environment cannot be damaged in this fashion. Beyond the courtroom, Justice Oka has articulated a philosophy that elevates environmental justice. He has stated that environmental justice cannot be separate from social and economical justice, and that the right to a pollution-free environment is not merely about clean air or water. It is fundamentally about human dignity, social equity, and the quality of life, especially for those who cannot afford mitigation measures. Today's lecture, Environment Rights or Duties under the Constitution, could not have found a more fitting speaker. Justice Oka's judgment and his judicial philosophy breathe life into both Article 21 and Article 51AG of our Constitution, reminding us that the right to a clean environment and the duty to protect it are two sides of the same constitutional coin. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Honorable Justice Abhay Shreeniwas Oka. Thank you.
Now may I request Your Lordship to deliver this. And it is about environment, rights or duties. I still wonder, Your Lordship, that whether it is rights and duties or rights or duties, Your Lordship. Thank you, Your Lordship.
Justice G.M. Akbar Ali, former judge of the Madras High Court, Mr. N. Ram, I will not describe him as N. Ram of Hindu because his recognition is much wider and much bigger than Hindu. Dr. G. Sundar, Mr. N.R. Elango, Dr. Raghavi Elango, other dignitaries on the dais, retired judges, members of the bar, members of the family, members of Elango family, young students, and ladies and gentlemen. I must start by paying homage to the memory of Rakesh. And I appreciate family members of Rakesh. After the sad loss they started Rakesh Law Foundation, and so many constructive activities have been undertaken in the field of education. And they have ensured that in that form, Rakesh remains alive, he's amongst us. And therefore, I must compliment Mr. N.R. Ilango and his family members for this event. I am neither a jurist nor expert in the field of environment. It is sheer matter of luck that I could appear in so many cases pertaining to environment as a lawyer, and then my Chief Justices in Bombay allotted me many cases concerning environment. I continued that work in Karnataka and in Supreme Court. So today, I don't want to deliver a lecture as such. I want to have a dialogue with you on the basis of my experience of working in environmental matters. Able to hear? Okay.
Sorry,
No, no, ma'am. So I am not here as expert in the field or any jurist. I just want to have dialogue with you on the issues concerning environment. And right question was asked by a brother, whether it is rights or duties and rights and duties. Last year in 2025, we completed 75 years of existence of our constitution. And there are functions arranged when we look back to see whether we have achieved anything. Of course, I can't say that there were no achievements at all. But my personal view is, it is my personal view, it can go wrong, as my judgments can go wrong, that environment is one area where we have failed to achieve anything. And on the contrary, during last 75 years, we failed to protect our environment, and there is degradation of our environment. This is one area where all of us should be really concerned. Now let us talk about the rights and duties. One of the greatest achievements of our Supreme Court was very broad meaning given by it to Article 21. The Supreme Court repeatedly said that Article 21 confers right to live with dignity, right to live a meaningful life, and that is later on expanded to say that under Article 21, all of us have right to live in pollution-free atmosphere. When environment around us is destroyed or degraded, we can never lead a meaningful life. We can never lead dignified life. And therefore, that amounts to violation of our rights under Article 21. Before I touch the main topic on environment, let us come to Article 51A, which incorporates fundamental duties. As senior persons who are here, they know that Article 51A was part of 42nd Amendment, which was brought about in dark days of emergency. And all the students of constitutional law know that most of the 42nd Amendment is not surviving. Partly it was declared as unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, or partly it was done away with by subsequent Amendment Act. But Article 51A has remained. Maybe all of us felt that it was done in dark days of emergency, and therefore object of Article 51A seems to control the fundamental rights or to curtail the fundamental rights. Or some of us felt that it is brought on Constitution to nullify the fundamental rights. But I think we need to adopt a different approach when we look at fundamental duties. According to me, the fundamental duties can complement the fundamental rights. There is one principle laid down by the Supreme Court that fundamental duties of citizens become collective duty of the state, because state ultimately consists of citizens. So whatever are the fundamental duties enlisted in Article 51A, they become fundamental duties of the state collectively. Now there are three provisions of Article 51A which are very relevant for the topic of environment. First and foremost is Clause A, which says that it is the duty of every citizen to abide by the Constitution and to respect its ideals. Now this has a very deep meaning. When we say that it is the duty of every citizen to abide by the Constitution, it necessarily follows that every citizen must know what is the Constitution, what are the constitutional provisions, and what are the ideals of our Constitution. We can expand it further by saying that all the laws in independent India have been framed in exercise of powers under the Constitution. So duty to abide by the Constitution is also duty to abide by laws framed by the legislature. And what is more important is respect its ideals. That's very important. Now one of the ideals can be, all those ideals can be found in preamble. One of the ideals is social and economic justice. And again, I am going to plead before you that failure to protect environment infringes the right conferred on citizens of India to have social and economic justice. I'll elaborate on my theory little later. And second clause in Article 51A, which all of us know, that Clause G, it is the duty of every citizen to improve and protect the natural environment. And what natural environment means is also made clear. It includes forests, lakes, rivers, wildlife. And there's one more important part of Clause G. It is the duty of every citizen to have compassion for all living creatures. When we destroy mangroves, we destroy marine life. When we pollute our rivers, it destroys marine life. When we cut the trees, we cause enormous harm to the birds. And again, it becomes collective duty of the state to protect and improve the environment. And if state fails to perform the duty, I can say that that violates fundamental right under Article 21 of the citizens to live in pollution-free atmosphere or to live a very dignified and a rich life. So therefore, states' duty to perform, states' failure to do this duty of protecting and preserving environment has direct nexus with upholding fundamental rights of the citizens under Article 21. And third and most important part of Article 51A is something which nobody remembers, but according to me that is the most important part, that is Clause H. And what is that Clause H? It says it is the duty of every citizen to develop scientific temper, humanism, and spirit of inquiry and reform. So it's our duty. When it is our duty, it is the duty of the state to ensure that we develop scientific temper and spirit of inquiry and reform. Unfortunately, after 1977, when this amendment was brought into force, nobody has even thought about performing this duty. I'll make little digression because I come from Maharashtra. There are very few people who took up this cause of scientific temper. One of them was one of the greatest personalities, late Dr. Narendra Dabholkar from Maharashtra. He devoted his entire life for pleading that we must develop scientific temper. There are very few individuals we see around who have taken up this cause. And I will tell you why it is material for the purposes of environment. Few years back, or a couple of years back, there was a festival known as Kumbh Mela in Prayagraj. It is claimed that crores of individuals took bath in the river. Imagine what kind of pollution we cause to the river. All this happens because we don't have scientific temper. Look, every day lakhs of people taking bath in the river which somebody calls as holy river. How do you call it as a holy river if you are yourself causing pollution? There is a very recent example which I read in newspapers. Initially I thought that it was untrue, but now everybody says it is true. Very recently, lakhs of liters of milk was discharged in a river in Madhya Pradesh for performing some kind of a religious ceremony. Milk, I read some material, milk is such a commodity that it absorbs oxygen. So lakhs of liters of milk discharged in the river, it must have killed the marine life in its entirety. And the level of pollution caused by throwing milk into the river, it will take years to improve the quality of water in the river. And here comes the concept of social justice and lack of scientific temper. In India, so many poor children need milk. This 11,000 liters or 11 lakh liters, I forgot what is the exact figure. This entire milk should have been given to poor children. They need the milk. Third example, again I'll give example from my state and some of the states in Western India. Ganpati festival, Navratri festival and so many festivals. We create water pollution, air pollution and noise pollution. Under the Environment Protection Act, noise pollution rules have been framed, but all these festivals, these rules are regularly breached. And we can't imagine the effect of loud noise on our ears and our brain. That's a matter of scientific study. It affects our brain. Not only that, we immerse our idols in the rivers, in the lakes and in the sea. If idols are made up of plaster of Paris, it creates a huge pollution. We don't realize that what kind of damage we do by immersing idols at these places. Bombay High Court had ruled that POP, plaster of Paris, should not be used to make Ganpati idols. Last year that order was modified to say that idols having height of more than 6 feet can be made up of POP and they can be immersed in sea. All this happens because we don't know what is scientific temper. Maybe it's a misconception of religion because I may be a non-believer, but I read little bit of religious material. I find that irrespective of any religion, I don't think any religion encourages destruction of environment. There was a great saint in Maharashtra 400 years back. He has written that trees and wild animals are our kith and kin. They belong to our family. So all that he said 400 years back, a saint from Maharashtra, he virtually said that environment is part of our family. As we protect our family members, we must protect the environment. And mind you, borrowing from what Dr. Narendra Davakar used to say, he used to say that I am not against any person having faith in the God, but I am against superstitions, because superstitions, his fight was against the superstitions. And ultimately, what is scientific temper? In simple words, whatever happens around us, we must test everything, every action on the basis of science and not on the basis of superstition. It is high time that in our schools and colleges, we teach the students the importance of developing scientific temper. From my own example, I can tell you what we learn in schools perpetually registers on our brain. I'll tell you a story of my own school. I was in a Marathi medium school, and Maharashtra has rich tradition of dramas. Lot of stage artists are given by Maharashtra. As it happens to schools imparting education in regional languages, the school did not have income. So school had a huge ground. So somebody suggested to the school management that we'll construct open air theatre. What is open air theatre? There'll be a stage constructed and chairs will be put in front of the stage, 400, 500 chairs, so that dramas can be conducted there on school holidays. That was approved by the school management. Without talking about environment, without talking about any technical terms, we learn so many things from our teachers. So we had headmaster. He realized that for converting that ground into an open air theatre, it was necessary to cut branches of a huge tree which was said to be 70 years old or more than 70 years old. The headmaster said, I will not allow it to happen. Ultimately, in the interest of the management of the school, he said, if you want to cut branches of that tree, do it when I am away for some official work, maybe meeting of headmasters or meeting in Jilla Parishad. Well, I will not be able to see this tree being cut. Now, he may not have taught us the environmental science, but these are the lessons which we learn in school days which always remain in our mind. So, these three fundamental duties are very important. I come back to clause A. When it is said that it is my duty to abide by the Constitution, it is my duty to ensure that I do not deprive fundamental right conferred on the others to live in pollution-free atmosphere. I'll give you another example. When I say that I have freedom of speech and expression under Article 19, it is my duty to ensure that no one else is deprived of freedom of speech and expression. That's what clause A means, to abide by the Constitution. After working as a judge for 22 years, I realized one thing, that following law is not part of our culture. Though Constitution says that you must follow Constitution, you must follow laws. So these three important fundamental duties have bearing on protecting and preserving the environment. Earlier speakers spoke about pollution in Delhi, air pollution in Delhi. Of course, I got opportunity to preside over MC Mehta bench. We used to monitor the pollution. The AQI, air quality index, used to travel beyond 350, 400 and more. And therefore, all those measures under that CAQM Act used to come into picture. Some drastic measures were there, like stopping the construction activities in the city when AQI level crossed 350. Then we had to pass an order, borrowing from the orders passed in lockdown, that when construction activities stop, you must pay subsistence allowance to the construction workers. And kind of pollution which is there in Delhi from October to March is horrible. Long time back, I think Justice Lokur's bench, I forgot who was the judge, they put constraints on auto rickshaws which are using diesel. So there are a lot of criticism of the Supreme Court in those days, that somebody said that, you know, this environment business is of elitist. I have seen what pollution means. I used to preside over a bench, MC Mehta case dealing with air pollution in Delhi, air pollution in Taj Trapezium area. If somebody says that all these orders were passed for the benefit of elites, they are completely wrong. Now, who suffers because of air pollution? The laborers, the coolies, the sanitary workers who work on the streets and footpaths and pavements, poor people who sell vegetables and fruits by the side of the road. 40% of the population of entire Delhi stays in shanties. Check the statistics from all public hospitals in Delhi. How many people belonging to this strata of society have to approach public hospitals for treatment of respiratory diseases? We who were staying in Lutyens area in bungalows, we could afford to have air purifier machines installed in our houses. Even in Mumbai, this year I noticed that after I came back, that AQI has started competing with Delhi. Only thing is that we are saved because of sea breeze, which drives away the pollution. I attended a workshop about environment lighter when one speaker said that when it comes to politics, nobody can compete with Delhi. But you should not attempt to compete with Delhi when it comes to air pollution. But Bombay has started doing that. And I'm sure this must be a situation in all cities across the country. So therefore, we must remember that when there is air pollution, poor people suffer more. Now, therefore, I said that when we breach the environmental laws relating to environment, or when we are not able to stop pollution, it affects social justice guaranteed under the preamble of the Constitution. It doesn't stop here. Now we have polluted rivers. I give example of what happened in Madhya Pradesh. We pollute our large lakes. We encroach upon the large lakes. We pollute our beaches. We destruct our mangroves. Because mangroves act as natural buffer against coastal erosion, then storm, rising sea levels. Mangroves have great capacity to trap carbon dioxide, and mangroves protect the entire sea life. Fish, crabs, sea turtles, etc. Now, when we destruct mangroves, when we contaminate our rivers, seas, and lakes, fisherman community suffers. They are deprived of their income. We have seen this happening in many parts of India. And ultimately, this has direct nexus with the economic justice which is guaranteed under the Constitution. Look at the effect of pollution of our rivers and lakes. People in rural areas depend for drinking water on these lakes and rivers. We comfortably staying in cities, we get some kind of a water which is filtered through filtration plants. We are in such a happy position. But due to pollution created by us, people are forced to drink contaminated water. So this is where I say that if we don't follow laws regarding pollution, we are violating what is guaranteed under the Constitution, social and economic justice. And when I say this, I am saying this about entire political class. I am not confining myself to any political party. And therefore, no political party is seen to seriously take up the cause of environment. In fact, now there is a fashion to say that, you know, these drastic orders passed by the court in environmental matters, or these drastic environmental laws, which are no longer drastic, I am going to deal with that, hamper what is known as development. So where are the leaders who are very keen on doing their performing their fundamental duty of protecting and preserving the environment? Where are the leaders from mainstream parties in India doing that? And when we discuss this environment, people like MC Mehta, and practically in every state, there are a handful of activists who take up the cause and they fight for preservation of environment. Boldly they point out fingers at those who violate laws relating to environment. It is very unfortunate that these activists do not get public support. Forget about, we don't expect politicians to support them. Politicians hate them. I'll give examples if time permits that how we don't support the environmental activists. They don't get any support and they have to fight their own battles. And there also it is failure to perform our duty. Now, one more thing I said, I started with Supreme Court expanding the meaning of Article 21. It is this court which has given us Godavaram, which protected forest across India, MC Mehta case, and many High Court judgments. For example, mangroves are treated as part of the forest. Of course, today is not the day to discuss that, but now somebody can say that trend is changing and now Supreme Court is going in a different direction. That's a subject matter of another lecture, and I won't be able to comment upon that because some of the judgments which I had delivered are subject matter of this controversy. I would not like to deal with that. There is one major issue in all leading cities. We are indulging it in large scale cutting of trees for construction of highways, flyovers, metro railway, coastal roads, etc. Because politicians call it as development. I am not saying for a minute that we should not have infrastructure projects. But unfortunately, none of the authorities who are responsible for implementing these projects think about saving as many trees as possible. Because they feel that these are not work of infrastructure, they are development. Nobody thinks, these authorities never think of protecting and preserving the environment. And before I come to the trees aspect, because this is very important, so many experts keep on meeting me after I demitted office. Earlier I had to keep distance. Everybody says that almost all bigger cities in India have lost green cover to the extent of 30–40%. And again, who suffers? Like city of Bombay, green cover is lost. There are no gardens for breathe air. People who suffer are people who stay in slums. So therefore, someday, I am not an expert, but someday we'll have to consider what is development in the context of constitutional philosophy. I wrote an article on this in one of the leading Marathi newspapers, where I propagated thought process. People attack that, and as I said, if my judgments can go wrong, my thought process can go wrong. So what I had said in the context of environment, I said, what is development? So if you want to say that whether we have successfully carried out development, perhaps we'll have to ask few questions to ourselves. The first and foremost question is, during last 75 years, how many modern primary health centers we have established in rural areas, which has stock of medicines, which has doctors available, and where quality treatment can be given. Second question, how many hospitals have been constructed by the government and public authorities like corporations, local bodies, equipped with modern medical facilities, consistent with the growing population, the rate of population increase? Have we provided enough facilities of medical treatment to common man at affordable rates in public hospitals? Again, consistent with the speed with which population is growing. Have we provided affordable houses in our bigger cities? In all bigger cities, including Bombay, those who belong to poor category, those who belong to lower middle class, it is impossible for them to acquire residential accommodation, and therefore they are forced to take accommodation in the illegal structures or shanties, because we are not able to provide sufficient number of affordable houses. Other question will be, in many states this happens, that political leaders and some elements of society, they become very vocal when it comes to their own language, language of the state. But we must be asking one question to all states: how many new schools the state has set up which impart training in the local language, where poor people can take education either free or in affordable price? So if you want to find out whether there is a development, we'll have to answer these questions, and if answers are not in the positive, can we really say that there is development? And we always talk about striking right balance, but someday we'll have to decide, we'll have to take a call on this situation, that can we have these so-called development activities, infrastructure work, at the cost of the environment? Now coming to the trees, fortunately almost in all states there are local laws which provide for embargo on tree cutting. There are authorities created that you can't cut a tree without permission of that authority. I am not conversant with local laws, but I found that as far as state of Tamil Nadu is concerned, there is no law which applies across the state. There is only old act of 1955, that is Tamil Nadu Hill Stations Preservation of Trees Act. Now these enactments impose embargo on cutting of trees without permission of the authorities. And permission can be granted conditionally. For example, in local law in Maharashtra, there is a very interesting condition which of course I know not being implemented. That if there are tree authorities there in each municipal area, so only tree authority can grant permission for cutting or pruning of trees. The provision is that if a tree is to be removed, the tree authority will assess the approximate age of the tree. And if it is found that approximate age of the tree is 50 years, then for cutting one tree you have to plant 50 trees by way of compensatory afforestation. So these are the laws which are prevailing in different states. But one thing which we have not done, of course there are provisions in the local laws. The need of the hour is to have tree census conducted in scientific way. In fact, in some of the local laws, like Act in Bombay, Act in Delhi, there is a specific provision that after interval of 5 years, there shall be tree census conducted, because we must know how many trees are there, what is the nature of those trees, to which species they belong. Because only if we have tree census, we can determine where is the illegal felling of trees. That is so important. So in Bombay, in Delhi, there are court orders which direct conduct of tree census. In fact, for Delhi and Taj Trapezium area, there is an order that Forest Research Institute at Dehradun must conduct tree census in most scientific way. Of course, that direction was in MC Mehta case. I don't now follow Supreme Court order, but I read in newspapers that some bench said that why should we keep this 1984 MC Mehta case pending? These are all orders in MC Mehta case. I don't know what happened to that, but that's another question. Now what happens is, authorities want to cut the trees because they claim that, you know, we are going to construct roads, we are going to construct flyovers, we are going to construct airports. And therefore the authorities which are empowered to permit cutting of trees, they act like a post office, just put rubber stamp. But I found in Karnataka High Court, a different mechanism was created. The court said that all these infrastructural projects where number of trees required to be cut are more than 25, no one will act on the orders of the tree authority or tree officer, and the court appointed committee of renowned experts in the field of horticulture, botany, etc. And that committee was told to examine the alignment of the project, go on the site and find out whether so many trees were required to be cut. My experience for 2 years in Karnataka was, we gave backing to that committee, and committee did excellent work. In many cases, we were able to save 20 to 30% of trees. Many cases, tree authority used to permit, say, cutting of 100 trees, but this committee used to go on the site and committee used to say, sir, only 75 trees are required to be cut, and out of 75, about 6 or 7 can be translocated somewhere else. Same thing was done by CEC, Centrally Empowered Committee of Experts in MC Mehta in Delhi. So this proves that the authorities who are in charge of these projects, they simply don't apply their mind, they don't perform their duty. Actually, they should be applying their mind when they fix the alignment of a project, that can we deviate from the alignment so that we can save trees, we can save environment. That does not happen. So these experts committee have done wonders, and in every case, we are able to save some trees. There another very gray area. Now courts and these authorities grant permission for felling of trees subject to planting by way of a compulsory afforestation, requisite number of trees. Or sometimes we provide for translocation, uprooting the tree and planting it somewhere else. Now in many cases I have seen the authorities provide for compensatory afforestation at a distance of 50 kilometers away from the site where trees were in existence. Now what is the meaning of compensatory afforestation? That area has to be compensated, which loses the green cover. Recently I read an article for Central Vista project, number of trees were translocated, and the newspaper report says only 40 or 42% of the translocated trees have survived. So compensatory afforestation goes for toss. Therefore, of course, you will see orders in MC Mehta, then court changed the approach. Court said first you plant the trees, first you translocate the trees, and then we'll grant actual permission for cutting of trees. Recent example of Bombay High Court. Bombay High Court permitted cutting of 45,000 mangroves to accommodate construction of coastal road. And what does the order provide? Order says, do compensatory afforestation of mangroves at a distance of 50 kilometers. Now nobody has examined, I talked to several botanists, all of them said that mangroves cannot be artificially planted, they must grow naturally. And that order also says compensatory afforestation at a distance of 500 kilometers from Bombay. Does it mean that it's really compensatory afforestation? In fact, all that activists were telling the court is that we are not against coastal road project, but appoint some expert agency. It may not be necessary to cut so many mangroves, entire stretch of mangroves need not be destroyed. But that was not accepted. Therefore, it's not only about granting of permission to fell trees, it is about successful compensatory afforestation. And these orders have to be strictly implemented, without which we'll only see destruction of trees. Very recent example, again it has direct nexus with scientific temper. After every 12 years, there is a place known as Nashik in Maharashtra, where this Kumbh Mela is held. Now government is proposing to cut some 1,200 trees. You know for what? For constructing houses for sadhus who are going to visit Kumbh Mela. But this is one exception I found. As I said, nobody supports activists, but this is one city where people are going and cutting there. And they are saying we will not allow trees to be cut. Now why this happens? Article 25 is there, 26 is there. Nobody will come in the way of essential religious ceremonies, but you require cutting of trees to accommodate sadhus. Now this is again why this happens, because we lack scientific temper. Of course in Nashik now, fortunately National Green Tribunal has intervened, and I think there is some kind of a interim order granted. Now let us look at the scenario of the statutes. Some of you must have read, in 1972 June, there was a convention in Stockholm where all the parties to the convention agreed that they will take immediate steps to protect and improve human environment. India is signatory to that convention. But let us see how we acted. The first law comes in 1974 dealing with pollution of water, Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act. Then nothing happens thereafter. 7 years thereafter, suddenly Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act comes in 1981. But the main law, that is Environment Protection Act, comes in 1986. And it's my impression, I may be wrong there, but what triggered legislature to act 14 years after Stockholm Convention was very unfortunate and avoidable incident of air pollution, industrial pollution in Bhopal. That triggered this act. So it took, because the comprehensive legislation is Environment Protection Act. The other two legislations are 74 and 81, they deal with air and water. And now under this 86 Act, very important rules have been framed. Before that, I must tell you one thing. The machinery of state pollution control boards and central pollution control boards were created in Water and Air Act. Please see and find out, almost in every state, there is no proper infrastructure given to state pollution control boards. They exercise huge powers, huge statutory powers. They are supposed to micromanage the implementation of the act. There are no scientists available. The posts are vacant. Supreme Court had to intervene on many occasions. So these machinery which is created of Central Pollution Control Board and State Pollution Control Board, that machinery becomes ineffective because they are not adequately manned. They don't have adequate equipment. They work with age-old equipment. Now let us come to the status of the rules. Now there are two important rules, three important rules rather in Environment Protection Act. One is Solid Waste Management Rules of 2016. Earlier there were 96 rules. Then rules dealing with construction and demolition waste. And third and most important, noise pollution rules. Go to any city in India, you will find that solid waste management rules are observed only in breach because there is a time-bound program laid down by the rules. And please remember, these rules have direct nexus with the quality of environment. I'll give you an example of Bombay. I had occasion to pass orders. In 2016, the figures were given to us. Those figures show that the capacity of the plants set up under the solid waste management rules, scientific plants which deal with solid waste, was so low that in Bombay, every day, untreated solid waste of 7,000 metric tons was generated in 2017. Today it must be much more. In Delhi, I am party to that order, MC Mehta case. In Delhi, every day 3,000 metric tons of solid waste is generated which is not capable of being treated because those plants are not equipped. So this is the state of affairs in the capital of India and financial capital of India, and that is so everywhere. Look at the consequences. The consequences are this solid waste which cannot be treated is dumped in the outskirts of the city where poor people live in villages or poor people live in hutments. And within few months, you see mountains or hills of solid waste. And there are often very fires that creates pollution. And what can I say about noise pollution rules? They are observed in breach. There is nothing like silence zones. This is one set of rules which I find that everywhere they are observed in breach. Now I see, I went to hospital to meet one of my relatives. So he was telling me that on some festive occasion they used a DJ, and the DJ creates vibration, even buildings and vehicles vibrate. Now I want to tell you about these three enactments. There is a very disturbing development. There was section 15 and there were pari-materia sections in Water and Air Act. Now section 15, you know the scheme of Environment Protection Act. There are rules framed. Under section 5 there is power to issue directions. Now one of the directions issued is that for bigger projects you need prior environmental clearance. Again, I will not discuss that because it relates to my judgment. And there is judgment of Madras High Court also on this. So there are directions issued for ensuring that the pollution remains under control. So the earlier law, section 15 said of Environment Protection Act, that any breach of provisions of the Act, rules, directions and orders passed under the Act was made an offense, and sentence was up to 5 years. And I think for successive breach it was 7 years. Similar provisions were there in Air and Water Act. Very few of us have noticed that in 2023, these penal provisions were done away with, and they are replaced by what is known as penalty regime. So that was the deterrent to ensure that, because people, with all the limitations of our justice delivery system, people, at least some deterrent was there, that somebody can be sentenced to suffer imprisonment if they commit breach of laws related to environment or orders. And now, what is the position? If you make major violations, start construction without environmental clearance, breach environmental laws, you can escape by paying some money in the form of penalty. Another very serious issue is about disappearance of lakes and water bodies. About water bodies also, there are international conventions, Amesar Convention and many conventions. Now these lakes and water bodies are the most important part of our ecosystem. One, it controls temperature. Second, it generates marine life, which is source of income to fisherman community. Three, it is a source of water supply. Almost in all cities, now lakes have disappeared with the passage of time. In Bangalore, we had to pass an order directing revenue authorities to examine revenue record. And wherever there was entry of lake and lake was not found, to restore the lake. There are orders passed by various high courts. I have seen that courts have to pass an order that please see that the inlets of the lake are not obstructed. So someday we must apply our mind how many lakes and water bodies have been destroyed during the last 20-25 years. Of course, courts take different views. I read one judgment where admittedly there was a lake which was destroyed and some small garden was created. Court said, now what purpose is served by restoring the lakes? My humble opinion is that we have no right to play with nature and destroy the lakes, because lakes is a source of water and income for common man, and they form very important part of ecology. Now, why this happens? I was carefully hearing about the activities of this foundation. Dr. Raghavi was describing that. A very important activity is that education of children. Now, why this happens? Why we are destroying environment? Notwithstanding constitutional provisions, obligations under the constitution, constitutional philosophy, laws. Because there is complete lack of literacy when it comes to provisions of our constitution and such important laws. I always remember there is a beautiful Marathi comedy movie. It depicts what happens in our courts. There is a lot of criticism, good comedy. There the hero says in his address to the court that in our country, the need of the hour is to educate educated people. This applies to the environmental laws and to the constitution. And because we don't bother about the, and actually if you look at the constitution, maybe we judges, I must take the blame, we write judgments in very complicated language. Therefore some people will feel that it is so complicated subject. All long judgments written on constitution. But it is so easy to understand our constitution. Your visionary like Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar has given this constitution. If you read, open the book of the constitution, it's so easy to understand. So easy to understand the laws related to environment also. But I think one more area where we have gone wrong, maybe with the passage of time, with the advancement of science, some of us believe that, This earth belongs to us, environment belongs to earth. The environment belongs to us, earth belongs to us, and therefore we are right to destroy that. It is exactly other way around. It is exactly other way around. Now, of course, I exceeded the time. Last thing before I conclude. The speed with which we are destroying our environment and our ecology. What are we going to leave for generation which comes into existence after 25 years? If we don't start implementing our constitution, our laws related to environment, perhaps to the next generation which comes into existence after 25 years, we'll give them only one legacy of polluted air and water. This is the only legacy we'll pass on to the next generation. And therefore, this is a huge challenge before the society. And I see some young generation sitting here. Dr. Abdul Kalam always used to say that I have expectations and hope from younger generation. So we must go to the schools and colleges and tell them the importance of constitutional provisions, importance of preserving and protecting the environment. This is all what I want. I just wanted to have dialogue with you because, you know, there are views and views. Views can be wrong. But what is important is nobody can dispute the grave urgency to protect and improve our environment. So we must start a debate. We must start exchange of thoughts, a thought process. That's very important. And I thank the organizers for making a beginning. And this activity should percolate to the schools and colleges so that we educate our new generation about the dangers which we face due to pollution and destruction and degradation of environment. I thank everybody for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Lordship. Thank you, Lordship, for that wonderful lecture. But may I call Mr. Ram to moderate with Mr. Ram can come over here. Lordship can take a rest and go.
Start. We've heard a very clear-sighted, insightful, and progressive approach to the subject of this lecture from our esteemed chief guest, Mr. Justice Abhay Shreeniwas Oka. And there are several references he made which resonated with me. But before I engage with in the task that has been assigned to me, and just to make it clear to everybody, it'll be for about 20 minutes, this segment of this evening, this event, after which Mr. Justice Akbar Ali will take over for the interaction with the audience. I want to say how much I appreciate this opportunity to be here again. I was a moderator in for the first annual lecture given by Mr. Kapil Sibal, and I greatly appreciate the fact, I second what our distinguished speaker said at the outset, to convert a great loss, a tragedy, into something extremely meaningful and continuing that over a period, focusing on justice and equity, is truly a contribution. We don't have enough of it, of such contributions today. So I greatly appreciate this opportunity, and I join everyone in celebrating the 25th birth anniversary of Rakesh Ranganathan, and my greetings to the family which has, in a dedicated way, moved forward in this lecture series. I'd start on the note with Justice Oka mentioned more than once the term scientific temper, not just a scientific method or way of approaching issues, but a temper. And in this connection, I think it's relevant for me to say that I had the great honor of delivering the first Dr. Narendra Dabolkar Memorial Lecture in Pune on August 20, 2019 on 3 challenges facing contemporary India. Dr. Dabolkar was a remarkable man. He lived his life, public as well as private, in complete harmony with his deeply thought out ideas on reason, on science, on philosophy, and on social justice. But the reason I mention that here is, that's the first question I'd like to raise with our lecturer, the connection between developing a scientific temper, which our first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru often talked about. I don't know what the origin of the term is. We have to do some research on that. But certainly one of the first major political leaders, national leaders who frequently talked about it was our first Prime Minister. So could you, Mr. Justice Oka, elaborate on the connection between the need to develop a scientific temper and the need to protect the environment, the rights, duties, and so on, because this is an area which is rarely discussed in public. May I request you to tackle that question?
Thank you, Mr. Ram. It's a great honor to share dais with you. See, this is one area where we are not worked enough on scientific temper and environment. And as I said, where it becomes relevant, because in the name of religion, we destroy our environment. Now, what is scientific temper? If I develop scientific temper, it does not mean that I go against a faith or religion. Now, I'll give you an example. People discharging milk in the river. Now, what is scientific temper? Before you take any action, you must test it on the basis of science. And simple thing, if you open Google or any book, it will tell you that milk can cause enormous harm. It can pollute the water to a great extent, and it will take long time to recover. Because milk has that quality, it absorbs oxygen. Now, if those people who sit there have had scientific temper, they would not have done it. So, when we do something in the name of religion which affects the environment, I think before you do anything, before lakhs of people take bath in a river, we need to test what we are proposing to do on the basis of science, because science has progressed. And I'm glad that Mr. Ram said that it's not about using scientific equipment, it's scientific temper. Now, ultimately, scientific temper is something which tells us what is wrong and what is right. Because only science can tell us that if you cut trees, even if you plant thousands of trees, it will take 100 years to grow the trees. This is what science tells us. Therefore, if we have scientific temper, we will know what is the worth of every single old tree, and therefore will hesitate to cut the tree. And I don't think it's a different area. I mean, personally, I may have very strong views about it, but since our constitution permits exercise of religious rights, I don't think if you use scientific temper, if you use science to decide whether you should be doing a particular thing in the name of religion, it goes against religion. It does not go against religion at all. And therefore, I said that somewhere now we have to begin and emphasize the importance of developing scientific temper when it comes to preserving and protecting our environment. That's our fundamental duty.
Thank you. Now on our environmental protection regime, on paper it looks comprehensive, it is impressive. Judicial interpretation has made a huge difference over time, on paper at least. But as you made very clear, there is a clear gap, there's a huge gap between what is mandated and professed constitutionally and legally and the reality on the ground. And you gave several examples: air quality, solid waste. Also, I would have mentioned the Ganga, the 40,000 crore project still flowing untreated, forest laws being diluted, and then ex post facto environmental clearances. But there must be a structural diagnosis. You mentioned or you made a passing reference to a society that doesn't live by its laws. That must be. But has there been institutional capture at some point where powerful interests, corporate interests, vested interests, allied with corrupt political interests, capture institutions and sabotage whatever progress has been made? And here, although the judiciary perhaps has a mixed record, probably more than any other institution in India, it deserves credit for bringing at least projecting these issues as requirements, as national necessities and so on. But when did this institutional capture happen, or was it embedded in the system right at the start? I'll come to the Silent Valley issues on which, as a journalist, I was also associated, which was one of the few success stories, I think, over time. But before that, the question is, has there been some kind of institutional capture where any progress is frustrated? Or am I being too pessimistic in offering that, in raising that question?
See, I look at this problem a little differently. Of course, somebody can certainly say that there is institutional capture. I mean, somebody has right to say that, maybe on the basis of material. But the real issue in environmental matters is, who is interested in preserving the environment and protecting the environment? Irrespective of the party barriers, no party is interested in that. I'll give one example. Now there are noise pollution rules. Now there is scientific data available that it can cause enormous harm to your mental health also. Now if every day there is procession in some festivals where 5,000, 6,000 people are there, now what police are going to do with 5,000 people in the procession? Because as you say, there may be some commercial interest in all these festivals, so it's quite possible. The manner in which these festivals are now being conducted, there may be commercial interest. And sometimes there is political interest also. There is no political will to stop the illegalities which take place on account of this. So it's of course an issue of institutional takeover, but more important issue is of complete lack of interest when it comes to taking care of environment, protecting the environment. Police do not have that freedom to take action against the violators, because of course now what action can be taken? Only fine or penalty. So you are right, I mean, we must discuss the causes also, to what extent there is capture of institutions, to what extent there is neglect, to what extent there is sometimes an intent to do something which causes harm to the environment. So all this, we need to examine this. A lot of debate is required on this.
Your final point was education. Start at schools. Who will do it, and what kind of resources will be required to do it? What kind of movement do we need? Is it the duty of course, it's on paper the duty of governments, but who is to seize the moment and take this forward?
No,
What do
you are
we
right.
see?
Now there is a paper on civics which students have to write.
Yes.
There is environmental science in some schools. But, you know, that is done as any other part of the curriculum. So therefore, NGOs who are doing work in the field of environment, the members of the bar associations, I mean, they are the people who should be taking interest in telling, because ultimately we must have a constitutional culture. Now, how that constitutional culture will emerge? Constitutional culture in the sense that everybody is sensitized to act in terms of the constitutional values. Now, that will come only when we go to the children and we educate them. Now, you are right, you don't expect government or this education department to do that, but then some citizens have to come forward, NGOs have to come forward, or the activities Mr. Ilango has started. Maybe he is doing in selected schools, but this can expand. But this is the only solution to tell students about importance of our constitution and constitutional culture envisaged by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar and other framers of the constitution.
The situation in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands
Right.
seems very disturbing, all that I've read about it. The Great Nicobar Holistic Development Project, where some people have said it's a case of state-led ecocide. The matter went to the Supreme Court, but they've been unable to stop whatever damage has already been enacted and is in the process of being enacted. There's a literature on this. How serious is this, and what more could the judiciary have done to halt this destruction?
See, I myself said I have some constraints because still though I am retired judge, I said so that perhaps there is indication we are going in different direction now. From MC Mehta, Godavaram, now in different direction. And of course, legitimately people can say that much more is expected from the courts when it comes to protecting environment, because in today's scenario, who else is going to do that? It is so obvious that political class is not going to do it, establishment is not going to do it, and who else can, only people can expect from the court. And there is nothing wrong if we have very high expectations. Absolutely, you are right.
I'll now briefly refer to the Silent Valley movement. Most people here are too young to remember what happened because the protest took off in 1973 against a proposed hydroelectric dam in a tropical rainforest rich in biodiversity in the state of Kerala. There was a strong movement spearheaded by the Kerala Sastra Sahitya Parishad. It mobilized public opinion on the need. Opinion was divided. The state government was very much for it. The central government didn't have much of a, didn't intervene in this enough. But in those days, newspapers, and here, pardon me for bringing in the Hindu, we were, I think, right at the center of it. The Malayalam newspapers didn't really support the KSSP movement. But we led this campaign. It was not just because newspapers took it up, but there was enough public in a progressive state of Kerala. Although opinion was divided, there was enough support for this environmental campaign, and in the 80s, after Indira Gandhi returned, the Congress under Indira Gandhi returned to power, and after further campaigns, on November 15th, 1984, the forests were formally declared a national park, and it was inaugurated by Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. It was, as far as I understand, a very rare case of a major victory for environmental protection, brought on by different actors, including the media, but also a movement, KSSP and so on. But very few political leaders supported it initially. But to the credit of the then Prime Minister, I think finally she saw reason, and her successor also, I think, played it right. Do you have any, did you follow this, Justice Oka?
Yes, yes. I used to read only newspapers in those days. This electronic media was not that active. I used to closely follow that, which ended in National Park, etc. I used to closely follow that. But sometimes I feel now, is our media doing enough to sensitize people on issues of environment? Because media has become so powerful now. Because I have seen in those days front page, these even in Maharashtra newspapers, we used to read about this movement in those days. But now we don't read that on the first pages and second pages.
What role do you envisage for lawyers like Mr. Ilango and also retired judges who can speak in their own way within the constraints they give that they function under, constraints that are based on norms rather than anything other? Can't they lead this campaign? Because you are, but lawyers, at least a good many lawyers, are very familiar with this. They know what has happened over time, the evolution and so on. Don't they have a leading role in this? I mean, perhaps that's one reason why you have chosen this. I don't know who selected the topic, but it is unusual. Hmm? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Justice Oka himself predicted it. So I think you perhaps should now work on a book on this subject. You have more than enough experience. You've already laid out a certain framework, terms of reference for taking this forward. But don't you owe Indian society a serious book on this subject?
Yes, true. You are talking about participation of lawyers. Now that I have retired, people come to me, and especially environmentalists come to me for advice. Now, one feature which I have noticed is that the same set of lawyers volunteer to appear in these matters. Obviously, environmentalists don't have money to pay the lawyers' fees. So, what I am trying to do, I am trying to talk to certain lawyers, especially in Mumbai, that more and more lawyers should take up this work pro bono. Well, ultimately, that is the satisfaction which one gets.
So you heard that, those who didn't hear it properly, he said more lawyers should take up this work pro bono.
In fact, I had that opportunity in my lawyer days, at least to do 2 or 3 such cases.
Yeah.
In one case, of course, the final order was passed by former Chief Justice of Madras High Court, Justice Ajit Shah. Yeah. With those orders, a lake could be restored. And I will tell you the contribution. The activists who took up this, in that petition, orders were passed, about 70, 80 industries were demolished and the lake was restored. Yeah. As it happens, there are FIR registered against that activist. But since it was lastly came before a bench headed by Justice Ajit Shah, yeah, in PIL, he ensured that closure report is filed against that activist. And there are a set of lawyers who appeared for him. Earlier, before my elevation, I used to appear in that case. Yeah. So, more and more lawyers coming forward to do pro bono work in the field of environment. That will change the entire situation, because now these activists, they keep on telling me, sir, we also feel awkward to go to the same lawyers and request them to appear pro bono. Otherwise, they are so busy in their profession. So, it has to be a lawyers' movement also, that they lend support to the activists who are doing something for the environment. And of course, I must say, people, amicus who are appointed in MC Mehta case and many other environmental cases, they have done a great job. Yeah. Where they leave their own professional work and work as amicus.
Yes. Right. Before we came here in the anteroom, we had a brief chat about law schools. Justice Oka shared his views and others as well. So isn't that a place where a lot could be done in the better law schools across the country?
No, actually, there's one recent development I must tell you, that many law schools have started now Center for Environment.
Yes.
So, if that is done across all national law schools and bigger law schools, That will surely help to sensitize the students. Because Central for Environment, they can do several activities. So that activity has started in some, because I was invited to speak for functions arranged by the Center for Environment in some law colleges. So that activity must be spread. Right.
So I think on that note, I'd like to thank Justice Oka for a very insightful lecture and hope that he will continue to contribute to national thinking on this subject. And he's also referred to Dr. Ambedkar's, I think the allusion was to that last, particularly to that last speech before the Constituent Assembly of India, where he said political democracy basically will fail unless there is social and economic democracy, and I think the environmental protection movement must certainly become integrated in people's understanding with social democracy, social and economic democracy. So may I now hand over to Justice Akbar Ali.
Can we give a big applause to both the Lordship and Mr. Baram? And students, you please be seated. Please be seated. We'll call you. Those students are waiting for the receive the prizes. Please wait for some time. And before that, we'll go for an interactive session, right? Students, you please go back to your seat silently, and we'll be giving the prizes a little later. Before that, we'll finish. Now, how many of you are ready with the questions? No, I will go for my esteemed brother, Justice G.R. Swaminathan first. I know that he is ready with any questions now. Preference is your brother, my esteemed brothers, G.R.S. Give the mic to him. Give the mic to him.
Sir, good
Sir.
evening. Yes, highly insightful. Truly grateful for that. I have 4 more years of service, and I'm presently heading the green bench. What message you have for me?
I can say only, see, I can't tell anybody to do something which I have not done. I can tell you only one thing: devote maximum possible time to the work of green bench. That's the only thing I can say.
Yes, next question. Sir, where's the mic? Mic and go on. Yes,
Check.
please.
I have the mic and the next question. Can I go ahead? Can I go ahead?
Please.
Yeah. So, not very long ago, we had the Supreme Court add a litigant to a very famous case where they actually added an imaginary Ram Lalla Virajman as one of the litigants and considered that as a legal entity which can be sued and can sue. So what is stopping the Supreme Court from considering rivers, water bodies, forests, mountains and other ecosystem entities as legal entities and allow them to sue the government for environmental infringement? So that is my question. I mean, what is stopping the Supreme Court from doing that? In fact, in the recent cases, the Ganga and Yamuna were actually treated as legal entities, but the Supreme Court kind of rolled that back as well. They took the legal status from, back from these two entities. We talk about Bharat Mata, we talk about the Ganga Ma and all that. Why don't we apply the same Ram Lalla, concept to these entities as well and allow them to sue, the powers in place? Thank you.
No doubt, a very interesting thought process. But look at the problem. Today, you will find number of cases filed in the high courts for restoration of the lakes or restoration of forest. Now, ultimately, even if you give status of status of a legal entity to a lake, somebody will have to represent a lake. Now, today, same thing is happening. Some environmentalist gets up and he files a petition under Article 226 or 32 for protection of a lake, for protection of river, purification of river, or for restoration of forest. So ultimately, same thing is being done in this fashion. But that's a concept on which lot of deliberations will be required, because when you take such a view, it has legal consequences. And we have to examine the legal consequences
of treating a lake as a legal entity. So it calls for a lot of debate.
Yes, next question. Yes.
Sir, one information. The place which we are now gathered, once it was a lake, sir. Now we are in a disappeared lake.
This was a lake?
Yes. Now this entire monument, this Valluvar Kottam, was built by the government of Tamil Nadu, 1976 project. This was a lake. This was a Nungambakkam tank once upon a time. Now we are in a disappeared lake. We are entire gathering. What is your opinion on this?
I will say only one thing in lighter vein. It's good that I was not told this in advance before I accepted this invite.
Second thing, sir.
See, this is what is happening. Now, why we allow it to happen? Now, there will be old residents of city of Chennai. Somebody should have pointed out at a relevant time. So, we as citizens, we are not prompt. Therefore, we allow it to happen, in fact.
Greetings. Greetings, Lordship. It was an absolute honor to listen to your lecture, Lordship. My name is Jnana Varshini. I am the secretary of KMC College of Law, Tirupur, a private law college in Tirupur. Our major takeaway is that we have to instill the scientific temper in all our students and citizens, and I assure you that we will definitely do that. And
Thank you.
And we'll also start a center for environmental law. We have yet to do that. And my question is, I would like to repeat what Honorable Lordship Akbar Ali sir asked, which is the title of the lecture, Environment Rights or Duties under the Constitution, or is it Environment Rights and Duties under the Indian Constitution?
I think it is both and. It has to be both. Because unless we perform our duties, we won't be able to enjoy our rights under Article 21. So it is both.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Lordship.
The student over there, yes.
Sir,
Student over here.
School.
we do many activities in our school to reduce the usage of plastic. But my question is, why government can't stop or reduce producing one-time usage plastic?
See, that's the question. In fact, one more issue I wanted to touch. I'm glad that you have raised this issue. In Maharashtra, there were some schools. In my city, there are some schools where teachers used to educate the children on after effects of bursting crackers in Diwali and other festivals. Where crackers is a major source of pollution in festivals. So, I am really glad that you have in your school they have sensitized students against use of plastic. But I'll tell you, of course, government should take action. Government should take action for regarding bursting of crackers also. But then, if you want to save the environment, we can't always rely upon the government, especially when we know the limitations. Because it's ultimately politics of getting votes. So ultimately it is the civil society, the members of the society, they have to be vigilant. So for example, if children studying in one school decide that in this Diwali will not burst crackers, if it happens in case of 10 schools, 15 schools, in that particular locality, the quality of environment will improve. So it's not that every time we should expect government to do something, that we should be doing something.
Thank you, sir.
Next question from here. I'll come. One question from this side, one question from that side.
Good evening to all the dignitaries on the dais. My Lordship, I might seek your pardon if I might slightly deviate from the topic, but my question to you is, in this era of biotechnology, where we are genetically modifying almost all the living beings under the sun, and my question to you is, by genetically modifying these living beings, are we really attaining sustainable development, or are we attaining sustainable development at the cost of tampering the environment? Because I recall you rightly said that none of us have the right to tamper with the environment. So what is your take on that? I would like to know, sir.
See, it is again part of the fundamental duty that we have to be kind to all living beings. Now, for our own gain, if we are tampering with other living beings, then surely it does affect the right under Article 21. Because ultimately we require other living beings also to exist to enable us to lead a meaningful life. I'm not talking about pets, but if there are no birds around, can we lead a rich life, meaningful life? So you are right there. I mean, we can't tamper with living beings in this fashion. And that may be for our own gain, for making our own experiments.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Lordship. Here. One more question from here, Lordship. This side, left side.
Good evening. I am very happy to see that Mr. Akbar Ali is going on jumping, running. I am very, very happy to see this Akbar Ali. One question is, sir, since the Constitution says it is our duty to protect the environment, how can the government encourage citizens to take this duty seriously in their daily lives?
I mean, you are very senior amongst us. Do you feel that in the present scenario, whether any government will do that seriously? Though government, it is their duty. I said there is judgment of the Supreme Court that fundamental duties of citizens, it is collective duty of the state. But unfortunately, they are not interested in doing that. Now, for example, causing pollution of the rivers or lakes for celebrating religious festivals. Have you ever seen any government taking any stand or any political party? I am not on particular political party, all parties. Have you heard anybody taking stand? I think perhaps we have changed a lot, because if you see first few years after independence, the government was instrumental in setting up BRC, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, all IITs, and so many Indian Institute of Science. So maybe when we began, after the Constitution came into force, perhaps approach was different. Now the approach has completely changed. But you are right, ideally we should be expecting government to do that, but it's very difficult to say, or rather it is impossible that they will do it. So mental falls on the citizens. And we must also remember one thing, the politicians also are part of us, we elect them. That also we have to remember.
Thank you, Lordship. Next question from the student.
Sir, I'm Saishri from Wales University. I have a question, is that what are your thoughts on large data centers using a large amount of fresh water when we are entering towards a water scarcity?
Water, yes, actually this is a question which is very relevant, because now we are setting up huge data centers, and I read some article, quantity of water which is required. So there again we'll have to think of striking right balance, because it is also important to know in which area these centers are coming up, because they can't come up in the area where there is perpetual water scarcity, where citizens don't get sufficient water to drink. So there also we'll have to strike a balance, that if data center needs water, it should be established in such area where by supplying water to data center, common man will not get affected. So it's a question of striking balance. Or maybe science will progress and maybe in few years we'll not require that quantity of water. But today, you're right, these data centers require huge quantity of water. You are right there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Lordship. One more question from a professor of law from the Law University.
Yes.
Good evening, Lordship. Good evening, dignitaries on the dais and off the dais. Lordship, one question is about, so still we are considering this environmental violations and other thing as a civil liability. What is your opinion if it is being going to be considered as a very strict criminal liability? Because for some reasons, we have to change from reformative approach toward the deterrent approach, because we are being keep on giving civil liability, we are giving penalties and other thing. So what about your opinion on this, Lordship? And second thing is about, what about the protections on the whistleblowers on this environmental protections as on today?
See, first question, actually I had dealt with. That we have gone in reverse direction now. The breach of laws, breach of provisions of Environment Protection Act, orders and rules was an offense. We have gone in a different direction. And as I said, those who fight for environment or environmental cause, they need protection. I gave you example while answering Mr. Ram's question. It was one gentleman who was in army for 5 years. He saw he was born and brought up in that city, he saw a lake disappearing with the passage of time. He took up the issue. He was not an activist. He retired as officer of a bank. And he was all alone. Lawyers supported him. But people went to the extent of prosecuting him because they found that there was a small temple on that temple erected after filling the lake. So all sorts of sections were applied. As I said, judges like Justice Shah were there. And same example I always give. So it is because of his efforts that lake was restored under the orders of the court. A beautiful garden and walking track was created. And when there was inauguration of that lake, this man even did not get invite. He walked up to a terrace of the building opposite that lake, and from the terrace, he had satisfaction of watching the ceremony. He was not even invited. He did not get invite from the government or municipal body. So this is the plight of environmentalists. So they need a lot of support, lot of money.
Excuse me. Good evening to one and all present here. My name is Ashik Karim Abdul Malik, and I'm a graduate of the Nalsar University of Law, Hyderabad, and I have practiced before the Madras High Court. My question is to Lordship Oka. Now, in your speech, sir, you mentioned there are several instances where there are religious practices which result in the degradation of the environment. Now, historically, when religion and the environment collides, we often invoke the essential religious practices test. Now, this is important because we have the nine-judge bench evaluating this very question. Now, when you're invoking the duty to develop scientific temper under Article 51A(h), where do you position that in relation to the essential religious practices test? Because what's essential to a religion and what is scientific temper is inherently in conflict. So how do you reconcile the two? Thank you.
Ultimately, it is the job of the courts to decide what is essential religious practice. Now, for example, there is judgment of the Bombay High Court. One particular religion claimed that we have right to use loudspeakers as essential part of religious practice. But on the basis of arguments made by a priest, the court held that it is not essential religious practice. The priest supported this plea. It is not essential religious practice. Because 200 years back, there were no loudspeakers in existence. So it's, again, job of the courts to interpret it properly.
Thank you. But I have a follow-up question, if I may ask it.
Please, only one question,
okay,
please.
thank you,
Yeah,
no problem.
We should ask, all right, let him ask.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, please.
Something interesting he wants to ask.
Thank you so much, Lordship. I personally think that the judiciary is best suited to make any change in relation to the environment, because if we take the government, they're largely politically motivated, so they're going to do what the people want. The people, you really need a lot of privilege to sort of have concerns over the environment, and judiciary is the only one, I feel, who has that liberty to sort of maybe have public interest litigation or social activist litigation to fix the environment. What would you say to that?
No, it's 100% correct. As I said, because of Godavaram, forests could be saved. But are we doing enough? And when I say, are we doing enough, I include myself in that. Whether I have done enough for the environment, do I had opportunity to do it. So, you did more than most. But still, you are absolutely right. Now, mantle has fallen only on the judiciary to do that. Because only common man will get strength if judiciary becomes very active.
I think there is going to be one pro bono is ready, I believe. Yes,
good. That's good.
Thank you, Justice, for such an enriching dialogue that we had. I had a specific question with relevant to the discussion that Ram Sir brought out, as well as the student had brought out. with reference to PILs and also the scientific temper versus the religious beliefs that the citizens have, is there any way that we can look at a more structured framework of what ERP actually is? Because while I believe judiciary does have the power and also the relevant to give a very understanding of what ERP is there any possibility of having a structured framework so that it's more linear?
See, it is like this. Firstly, we require intervention of the legislators, because there has to be a law. And in fact, Mr. Ram referred to Dr. Davolkar. He fought for his entire life, and he led agitations that government should come out with legislation. Indeed, a legislation was made, I think, in 2013 or so, but that is not adequate. So we need laws, because only by educating people we will not get desired results. We need legislation, very robust legislations, to deal with this issue.
Thank you, Justice.
One small student from the 9th standard is going to ask a question, Lordship. He is going to ask in Tamil and I am going to translate it.
Thank you.
சார் இப்போ யாராவது மரத்தை கட் பண்ணா அவங்களுக்கு என்ன பனிஷ்மெண்ட் தருது?
He is asking if somebody is cutting a tree, what is the punishment we are going to give him, the government or the authorities?
Actually, in some of the states, the law frame for protecting trees provide for punishment. If you indulge in cutting of trees without permission of authority, there is a punishment prescribed. Long time back, I attended a seminar in some law school, and some learned speakers said, I picked up and I said in one of my judgments also, that the speaker said that if you are cutting and uprooting 100 years old or 50 years old tree, it is just like committing culpable homicide, for which of course there is no punishment, drastic punishment. But we need to develop that culture. We must understand the seriousness of cutting, implications of cutting one tree.
Lordship, தம்பி புரிஞ்சுதா? பனிஷ்மெண்ட் ஃபார் கல்பபிள் ஹோமிசைட் என்ன கொலை குற்றத்துக்கு சமமானது அப்படிங்கிறாங்க. சரியா? அந்த அளவுக்கு கொடுக்கலாம். ஆனால் இப்போ அந்த மாதிரி என்ன சட்டத்தில் என்ன தண்டனை இருக்கோ அது மட்டும் தான் கொடுக்க முடியும். ஆனால் உங்களுக்கு சொல்கிறது என்னென்னா, யாராவது ட்ரீ கட் பண்ணுறாங்கன்னா உடனே அத்தாரிட்டிஸ்க்கு உடனே சொல்லுங்கள். சரியா? Next.
Warm greetings, everyone. When the discussion was going on, environment clearance and ex-post facto environment clearance was in the discussion. Lordship, in 2017 and 2021, there was a office memorandum passed by the central government.
One thing I want to tell you, I am author of a judgment which held that this is illegal. But I don't want to talk about it because there was a review and matter is pending. So I don't wish to comment about and speak about my own judgments.
Okay. Lordship, okay.
Pass on to the next. Yes. Yes. One question. Yes.
Good evening, Your Lordship. Yes, my Lordship, my question revolves around what sustainability and environment. When we speak about sustainability and environment, we speak about the word limitations. Now, my question is, does this limitation possess a bar on human development or a human ingenuity to grow or develop? Well, India as such, we have a growing population, and in turn, we need resources. Now, when we speak about environment and sustainable development, do we bar the growth that people can achieve?
See, it is as simple as this. I myself, we need housing, affordable housing. Maybe for constructing some project where we can give affordable houses, some trees will have to be cut. But what is required is, we should minimize the number. We should go to the minimum, and before we cut the trees, we must ensure that compensatory afforestation takes place in that area. So it's an approach. Nobody says that, suppose somebody wants to construct hospital, public hospital, maybe some trees will be required to be cut. But what is important is the approach. That are we sufficiently thinking about protecting the trees? We can think about that and start compensatory afforestation before we start the project. So it's about our approach. Nobody can say that for essential public services, if some trees are required to be cut, they will not be allowed to be cut. But question is of developing right approach.
Lordship, one more question, please.
Though your Lordship mentioned in a lighter vein that we need to educate the educated, but your Lordship with a serious concern made a foundation today by educating the educated. But according to your Lordship, one more further step, what would be the best possible practical approach in furthermore moving forward towards the educating the educated as your Lordship's personal vision or mission?
See, when I said that we need to educated masses, I included myself in that. Somebody raised this issue that we are using so much of water for these data centers. I was not aware of that. Recently, I read somewhere. So actually, it's actually self-education, in the sense that it's very simple to read the Constitution. We don't read Constitution. We only celebrate 26 January. We don't read the Constitution. So actually, it's a part of self-education that we must educate ourselves. See, this environment matters, for example. I could learn something. I'm not saying that I learned many things. I could learn something because I got opportunity to sit on those benches. So it was a process of self-learning for me also. So it's all about self-learning.
Lordship, this boy, Lordship, I cannot avoid this boy, Lordship, that he wants to ask one question.
Good evening, Lordship. My question is: this bottle causes pollution. If we use glass bottles, still when animals take that glass bottle, they get injured. So what's the alternative?
Actually, I must compliment you for asking this question. And then actually, you have done something very important. That you have demonstrated that when I use this bottle to drink water, I also damage the environment. That's a signal. I compliment you for that. You know, now some people are evolving paper bottles, and the paper can be recycled. I could see such paper bottles created by some manufacturers. Even tea can be served in that, and they can be recycled. So some solution will have to be found out. You are absolutely right. And you are so right about the use of glass also. If we throw bottles by the side of the road, the street dogs will get hurt. You are right, so right, I mean.
Good evening. Give a big clap to Adiyan.
I think he is the real hero of today's event.
Thank you, Lordship. I know many of you have questions, but Lordship, that I cannot avoid. One more gentleman over here.
Good evening, sir. I'm Kirti. I recently moved from US after living there for 16 years. I wanted to ask a question, but many have touched on most of the questions that I wanted to ask. And thank you for insisting on the scientific temper and the educated to be educated. I have a request, not just for you, for all the dignitaries. Recently, I've seen, at least in the last 2-3 years, the civic sense of Indians in the US have come to a relatable low level. And the reason that we found is because Indians over there wanted to mimic what is happening here. They just take all the religious aspects of India or anything that has been done without any scientific proven methodology has been taken over there, and they try to implement it. And in that due process, they hurt their career, their immigration. So I really request anyone in India in such a dignitary position to have the scientific temper and pass that kind of a knowledge with real reasons and the education that can also help them. Because it's really heartbreaking to see people in India, Indians in the US celebrating Ganesh Chaturthi, which is causing noise pollution around the neighborhood. And in fact, polluting all the ponds with the Ganesh Visurgence.
Please restrict your question, sir. Restrict your question.
Just a comment, and I just really want to have everyone to have that
Your
kind
question,
of
sir.
knowledge.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. No,
Thank you.
I'm done with that comment. Thank you.
I think that he is only giving a comment to your Lordship. Before Lordship coming to the next person, now I see that many of the environmentalists are here. How many lawyers or how many students are going to support His Lordship's pro bono environmental lawyers? Raise your hands, and you have to give your names and everything that somewhere that we will be asking you. How many of you? That's all? I expected more. Where are the senior advocates? Where are the senior advocates? I don't see any of the senior advocates. I would. Thank you, Your Lordship. I will move on to the next program. And now, under our foundation, Lordship, that we are giving prizes to the toppers and everybody, with Your Lordship's permission, that I can call them now. The 12th standard toppers of a government school. The 12th standard toppers, the first rank goes to Sakti Devi R. Sakti Devi R is the topper, 12th standard topper. And the second prize goes to Mitra, school second topper Mitra, 12th standard. Condition. And the third goes to Mr. Siva. This is for the year 23-24. The 12th results have not come. It is for the year 23-24. Then it goes to 11th standard toppers. The first rank goes to Mohammad Rehan. Mohammad Rehan, 11th standard, first rank topper. The second goes to Jeevan. Jeevan R has not come. Then the third goes to Lavanya. Now the 10th standard toppers be ready. 10th standard toppers, the first rank goes to Saravanan. Big hand to Saravanan. The second rank go to Shyam Kumar. P. Shyam Kumar. The third prize goes to Sandhya. Come, Sandhya, please come. We have the 9th standard toppers. 9th standard toppers. The first rank goes to Tamil Chelvi. Then second prize goes to Yogashri. The third prize goes to Kamalesh. I can see it's always the girls' lordship. Now we are going to give prizes to Tamil toppers. For the Tamil toppers in 12th standard, the first rank goes to Sakti Devi. She is a Tamil topper. Then the second prize goes to Sri Vidya. The third prize again goes to Siva. Siva, the third prize, 12th standard topper in Tamil. Then the Tamil toppers in 11th standard, the first goes to Jeevan. Jeevan. Then the second prize goes to Rehan. Mohammad Rehan. All these Jeevan, Rehan and Lavanya of the 11th standards are both two-time toppers. Tamil as well as English. Lavanya. The third prize goes to Lavanya. Lavanya is here. Lavanya, third prize. She's coming. Then the 10th standard be ready. The 10th standard first prize goes to Gautam. The second prize goes to Poo Arasi. The third prize goes to Sangeeta. Ninth standard Tamil toppers. The first prize goes to Rishika. Second prize goes to Manikandan. He is the one who asked a question. And the third prize goes to Ramiz Ahmed. Oh, Jeevan. Sorry. Thank you, Lordship. Thank you very much. We are coming to the last of the program. The vote of thanks. The vote of thanks by Dr. M. Ranjit.
Distinguished guests gathered today, thank you to Valluvar Kottam authorities for making the event happen today. Thank you to RMR M. Sundar for long partnership with RLF and for giving the welcome speech. Thank you Honorable Justice Mr. Abhay Shreeniwas Oka for coming down to Chennai and for giving us an eye-opening lecture on environment rights or duties under Constitution. Thank you, sir. Thank you to Mr. N. Ram for the constant support to RLF and moderating the session. Thank you to Honorable Justice Mr. Akbar Ali for the everlasting mentorship. I want to thank the following guests who have shown their presence: Honorable Justice G.R. Swaminathan, Honorable Justice K. Chandru, Honorable Justice Bharati Dasan, Honorable Justice Nakiran, Honorable Justice Pushpa Satyanarayanan, Honorable Justice Bhavani, Senior Advocate Nalini Chidambaram, Senior Advocate Shanmuga Sundaram, Senior Advocate Vijay Narayanan, Senior Advocate NGR Prasad, Advocate Amit and Advocate Vivek Singh from Delhi, Dr. Jaykumar, nephrologist, Dr. Murugeshan and Dr. Thayapan. And I want to thank some of the important people who have mentored RLF and worked for the foundation. Honorable Justice Mr. Raja Langusa, Mr. Cheran and Ms. Napinay Cheran, Advocate Gandhi, Advocate Madurai Tilak, Advocate Stalin, Advocate K. A. Saravanan, Advocate Pachepan, Advocate Ashwin, Advocate Agilesh, Advocate Deepak and Advocate Arjun, and all the other juniors of our founder. Thanks to all the dear students and the faculty members and all the guests present. Thanks to Madambati Rangarajan for preparing the food today. Thanks to photography team, event manager and all the workers who have arranged the seating, lighting and all the facilities arranged for the comfortable lecture series for everyone. Once again, thank you all and please join us for the dinner. Thanks.
Thank you, thank you. Let us rise for the national anthem. The students come. I think that we can all join the student also. Janagana Mana Adinayaka Jayade Bharata Bhagya Vidara Punjab Sindh Gujarat Maratha Dravida Uttara Ganga Vindhya Himachala Yamuna Ganga Uchala Jala Chitaranga Daba Shubha Name Jahe Daba Shubha Shisha Mage Kage Daba Sayadada Janagana Mangala Nayaka Jaya He Bharata Bhagya Vidada Jaya He Jaya He Jaya He Jaya 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 He. Thank you all. Please have your dinner and go. Dinner is arranged for each and every one of you, and please have your dinner and